The past is not just dates and figures. The past is an entire arsenal of ideas, of emotions, of art, of music. History is, in a sense, everything that happened before this moment. This is an interesting department. It has a very distinguished history. History used to be studied very much according to geographical areas. But in recent years, there's been greater interest in seeing the connections between different periods and different geographies. And I think it shows people that history is not just about where things happen and when they happen, but also how things happen over time.
It's always one of my biggest pet peeves when people tell me, oh yeah, history, I was kind of interested, but I really didn't like memorizing all the names and dates, and that just makes me want to tear my own hair out, because it's like, that's not what history is. History is a narrative. History is understanding contexts and perspectives. I think that's far more exciting than the kind of traditional view of very dry and boring history.
I feel that in classes here, instead of being told what happened, you're asked to consider a bunch of things that could have happened, and you're taught to ask questions like, how did that happen?
The real thing about history, though, that makes it so much fun is that it's a narrative, it's a story, it's an adventure.
The history concentration at Brown is really a very powerful representative of what we mean by liberal education. Asking penetrating analytical questions, doing the research in order to answer that question, and to articulate some kind of answer to that question. If you think about it, those three skills are skills that are far more transferable to whatever somebody does after graduation from Brown.
When I graduated from Brown, I felt like I had this incredibly applicable skill set. It sounds like a cliche, but it taught me how to think, and it taught me how to problem solve, and it taught me how to sort of look at and understand a new situation.
The options open to you are pretty wide, and I do think you can take the skills from history and take them out of that context and apply them in different professions. And I think that's really what's most important, and I've seen that in my job day to day.
The degree I received here from Brown and the work I did in the history department has really helped to mold the person that I am today. It's helped to inform me on issues and stories, but also helped me to better understand how to frame and present the news that I ultimately worked in, and also to better understand issues when I worked in the world of politics.
What a small business person really does, and what any business person does, is you have to make decisions with imperfect information. And that's the study of history. You have all sorts of historical record that's quantitative, anecdotal, oral histories, and you have to put it together and take these bits of stone and glass and arrange them in a mosaic that makes sense.
When you study a subject in history and then write about it, what you're doing is sort of getting an idea from many perspectives about something that happened, and then you're recreating your own narrative of that story. That skill, learning to do that well, is very, very much like what you do as a doctor. So you gather facts from your patients, and then you create a narrative that explains what's going on with them. And in the same way that in history that sort of leads you to a thesis, I think in doctoring that leads you to a diagnosis.
It doesn't matter what you end up studying. You may study medicine, you may study law, but if you don't have a larger understanding of the world, it will be very hard for you to know how to make a difference. And I think that most Brown students come to Brown because at least they have a view of themselves as people who will, in one way or another, matter to the society, to their culture. To do that, you need a larger understanding of the world you live in.
In History of Southern Africa, we read a book called The Seed Is Mine, which is an oral history of a man who was a sharecropper. Reading about his struggle to stay afloat and to sort of carve out his own experience. For me, at least, now working as a lawyer in an organization devoted to social justice, it's something I think I first became really excited about as an undergrad, and to be able to sort of take that and just say, well, there are things we can do.
I think one of the things that you're looking for in college is you're looking to be inspired. And I was really interested in the American Civil Rights Movement. I was also really interested in post-revolution Russia. And now, as a physician, I more frequently than I think I ever would have expected go back to the way that I thought about those issues as an undergrad and rely on things that I learned as an undergrad that inform the way I think about creating social change now.
And what I do now in Ghana really places a premium on a high level of cross-cultural skills. And history just taught me to be sensitive to all that. And sometimes, actually in business, it's not about the quantitative aspect of the business deal, it's really the cultural piece and understanding people and getting into their minds and understanding their point of view and walking in their footsteps. And that has allowed me really to make progress when people who had more money than I, more experience than I, weren't able to do so.
Whether it be, I think, in business, in law, in medicine, the current just general level of intercourse, discourse between different countries is huge, obviously, relative to what it was. For anyone in those contexts who wants to work in those fields, it is so helpful to know something about the past of the people you're speaking to.
This is a global period in history that it's important to understand with a global perspective. That's one great thing about Brown's history program, is that there's a great amount of flexibility in the courses you can choose.
You're constantly encouraged to explore what you're most interested in, write papers about the part that hasn't been touched upon that most interests you. That it's very easy and very much encouraged to find your own niche.
I'm really interested in physics in particular, so part of what I love about the history of science is that you gain a greater appreciation for what you're learning in physics.
I feel like history is kind of the building block upon which other social sciences can work and go forward. My name is Rachel Weiler, and I'm studying 20th century German history.
I'm focusing on early modern Britain.
Early modern world.
The history of the environment.
Ancient Chinese history.
History of science. Antebellum American history.
Attorney, Brooklyn, New York.
An investment banker at JP Morgan.
I'm a journalist.
I'm a doctor at the Cambridge Health Alliance.
Medical director of ambulatory practice improvement.
The founder and president of the Omanhini Cocoa Bean Company.
Brown historically has been this incredibly strong liberal arts institution. And I think in many ways it's sort of at the heart of what makes Brown special to study history there.